very warm welcome to you as you join us on today's episode of Tax Matters. My name is Olumuyiwa Matuloko, and we want to celebrate with the children of Nigeria on the occasion of Children's Day. With me on today's episode is Freddie and Christina.
Hello viewers, and happy Democracy Day.
One major meal on the menu on the last episode of Tax Matters was an X-ray of the informal sector in Nigeria and the taxation of that sector and the role of presumptive tax in bringing them to tax. And we looked at that topic through the lenses of Mr. Babatunde Fala, the Executive Chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, who presented a paper on that topic at the 18th Annual Tax Conference.
Today I'll be talking about taxation of the informal sector and issues in the presumptive tax regime. Now, there's really no universal definition of the term informal sector. But what I did and what I generally describe as the informal sector broken down into two. You have the informal sector made up of people who perform everyday services, the gardeners, the domestic staff, the tailors, the transporters, etc. But you also have people in the informal sector who are professionals, who are doctors, who are engineers, but work for themselves and work out of home. Now, some of the characteristics of this area is that they either have poor or non-existent record keeping. They believe that the tax laws are very complex and very difficult to understand. And a few of them, I'm talking generally now, believe that government has really not done anything for them, so they see no reason why they should pay any taxes.
That paper by Mr. Fowler was delivered at the Annual Tax Conference on Thursday, the 12th of May. Just a week after, on Friday, the 20th of May, Mr. Fowler was part of a panel of discussants at the Lagos Music Conference, where the business side of the music industry in Nigeria, the economics of the music industry was discussed. And of course, you know, when business exists, where income is earned, there you will find the taxman.
Yes, so Mr. Fowler was joined on the panel by ace musician Mr. T-Mac and Mr. Cletus George. Moderator was Jenny Tan.
In a lot of countries around the world, music is in fact a revenue earner for the nation. And Nigeria, despite it being such a music nation, has not exactly been able to turn the revenue or the, let's say, the sales on the music that are actually happening in the market has not yet turned into a revenue earner of the nation.
Nigeria is a particular case. As other environments that are removed from what you call organized business environments. Music also being sort of an abstract element, it has not found its way into the business aspects of the educational system. So it's only in the last 10 years, you can say, that performing arts, production of music, and movies attained a level of importance. And not having been important before as an economic element, no attention was paid to structuring the industry. It wasn't even an industry. So in brief, we call it an informal system. In an informal system, nothing is traceable. You don't know how much is produced. You don't know where they are produced and where they end up. You don't even know who does the production, you know. So in that case, you cannot really quantify or go after the claims of government in terms of tax or levies. You cannot.
That is the crux of the matter. the music industry in Nigeria, in spite of all the big names of the 60s and 70s, in spite of all the big names of the last hip-hop decade, remains largely informal, making it difficult for government to make any claims from operators in the industry, and vice versa.
We have to first ask a question. How can we be important to the government? How can the industry add to the gross national product? The only way when a gentleman like Mr. Fowler can say the entertainment industry is bringing in 100 billion naira on tax. That's all. The moment he can say to Mr. President, Nollywood, the musicians are bringing 100 billion, the president will say, oh, very interesting. So we are getting away from that oil. In many countries, the entertainment industry is the second biggest business. So we have to ask ourselves, what do we have to do that everybody pays tax? Number one, we have to find out who is producing the CDs, who is selling it, regulating and organizing them. When you control it and you have the turnover, you can tax them. Now you know how much a company has to pay on company tax. The artist who produces, who makes money, how much is going to pay on income tax? The next one is every foreign artist who comes to Nigeria should pay tax at source. If he earns $100,000, he should take 30% off, goes to the tax, and he makes 70%. Because if I perform in the United States or England, they take 30-35% of my money away, tax at source, because I don't live there. So this is revenue coming to the government, and then we become important.
That, again, if you ask me, raises the stakes. How does the music industry in Nigeria become important to government?
Pay taxes first, then get recognized.
That's good music to my ears.
Certainly, the entertainment industry is very important to the government, both at the federal and the state levels. Now, in terms of figures, it was estimated that your industry accounts for about 1.2% of GDP, which translates a little over $6 billion. So that gives you an idea of where we're heading to. What you require is support from government. Now, what does the government do for you? Government creates the environment for you. Government makes sure that people who come to attend your concerts are safe. And then government has its own way of even being your customers. So don't look at government only as a regulator. We're part of society. We'll also pay for tickets to attend concerts and all that. But just like you said, you have to make yourself relevant. Now, once I can tell the president that tax of 100 billion, for example, has been received from this sector, then we can start to think of ways that we can help promote your business a bit more. Now, this is regardless of the law that says that everyone has to pay taxes. But like you said, he goes abroad, they deduct at source. Now, legally, we could stop any concert from happening here. If you bring in foreign artists and there's no evidence of any tax payment, we could just close the doors. But that's not the approach, all right? We enjoy to have foreigners come in, we enjoy foreign investments, but you as a body have to put yourselves together, do the right thing, pay your taxes, and like what he just said, if, for example, you had accurate records and an artist had 1 million CDs out, and for some reason, 2 million were being sold in circulation. Now, the people who did that illegal activity of overproducing and making the artist poor, and you wrote to government and said, listen, I had 1 million CDs. The only thing that government will ask you is that, based on your sales, how much tax did you pay? But you also have the right to tell government, please shut down all these people selling pirated CDs. And government will come out on your behalf, call it raids, and check to make sure that your art is safeguarded.
What would you say are some of the innovative strategies or policies that would further support the music industry from a federal government point of view, let's say?
So outside here, we have people from the Corporate Affairs Commission. We have a desk from FIRS to show you how simple it is to become legal. When I say legal, if you want to export your talent outside the country, Sometimes before you get your visa, they'll ask for your tax information. And that is one way of you being able to do your business. And people will not be afraid to invite you in to partner with them.
But what are some of the benefits of paying taxes?
To try and answer your first question, I don't know how many of you know, and I'm just using this as an example, but I heard it at a tax conference. And the guy was asked the same question: why should we pay our taxes? And he clearly just simply said, if you don't pay your taxes, and the man in Ajegunle can't sleep, the man in Ikoyi equally will not sleep. Now what that means is that if you don't empower government to look after all levels of society, those who require aid, who don't have it, will come to where the affluent live and take it by force. So you see, government also needs that backing to provide for all people in society. And I can assure you, this government is determined to support everything local. And when I say local, in terms of talent, in terms of trade, in terms of industry. So we're just simply saying, give a little bit out of your income. You only pay tax on profit or income. Give a little bit back, and then see what government will do for you. Maybe in years past, maybe people who pay taxes were not satisfied with the expenditure of that revenue. But we have a government in office now that I believe that we all trust, a government that has promised to deliver certain services to us as people. So let's give them that opportunity.
It's a new dawn in Nigeria, and the mantra is change. The wind of change is blowing all over Nigeria and beckons to you. One sure way to respond is to perform your civic duty: pay your tax. With taxes, government generates revenue to fulfill its electoral promises, ensure regular power supply, provide good security, standard education, medical care, true total change. Individuals and corporations enjoy specific benefits, rights and privileges for paying taxes and avoid the consequences and penalties of not paying. Oil revenue is no longer sufficient to bring desired change, but your tax can. It pays to pay your tax. A message from the Federal Inland Revenue Service.
I mean, I've spoken to people from various African countries and even abroad, and they know the names of most of our artists. And sometimes you actually see the recording of when they go to Kenya or they go to Zambia or they go to different countries, they go to South Africa, and they play their music in the nightclubs. Now, the question I'll ask you is that when they're playing their music in the nightclubs, do you get any royalty? Most of the time, they play our music on their radio stations, they pay no royalties and all that. But you see, for you to come forth to the government to assist you, you have to, first of all, be known to government. And the only way government knows you is if you're, in quote, you're a taxpayer. Once you're a taxpayer, your name is written down, your company name is written down, and then we can act on your behalf. But without you taking that first step to be recognized as a legitimate company or individual, in quote, in Nigeria, for the Nigerian government to come out and help you, you have to take the first step.
This is where we've been talking about structural solutions. It will serve the stakeholders, artists, as well as the government intention to collect tax. It facilitates it. You can now really know who the artists are, where they are, practically in the end how much they earn. So if the tax office is writing to the branch without a specified figure expected from its revenue, which it must have the details, and only a traceable database can provide such details.
Can we just agree that we've all agreed to formalize the industry, get into the tax net, and let government represent you?
One little appeal to all the musicians. If you make money, if you make plenty of money, pay your tax, because it will help us to be recognized by the government.
The industry is the future. Content is the new crude. And just like crude oil, it must be refined to give you diesel, to give you fuel.
What do you think?
The message is clear. to benefit from government's help come forward. Advance to be recognized.
Advance to be recognized. I like that. Now that it is obvious that the Nigerian music industry still needs some restructuring, some formalization, and that in the meantime, government can only treat them like what Mr. Fowler referred to as informal sector professionals. I mean, the musicians are by no means poor. We know how much they earn from live shows. We know how much they earn from endorsements. But in the absence of a formal structure, what is government doing to bring them to tax?
Now, when we look at Nigeria, the informal sector is said to constitute or be responsible for 58% of our GDP. If we look at the average for other developing countries, it's at 41%. Those countries in a position of transition is at 38%. So Nigeria as a country has the highest number within the accounting for 58% of the GDP that are not tax compliant. There are a few African countries that had introduced presumptive tax already, and I'll just go through a few of them. Zambia had already started this tax on taxis and minibuses in terms of transportation. They also had a turnover on tax on small-scale enterprises. Kenya also had turnover tax on income within a set threshold. Tanzania also had it in terms of income tax regime under the Income Tax Act, use of block management systems. Ghana also introduced presumptive taxation since 1960. And I'm glad to say that Lagos State also introduced presumptive tax well over 9 years ago.
What is the role of presumptive tax in the whole matrix?
Now, in terms of our law, in 2011, there was an amendment which also introduced presumptive tax into the Nigerian tax system. Now, prior to this, apart from Lagos State, most states did not believe that adequate revenue could be made in this informal sector. And that's why Lagos State basically had over 40 stations in various markets across the state. And I can safely say, and I believe still presently, that they're still collecting taxes on a daily basis without any harassment from the market women and people who go to trade within the market. And that tells me that it's something that can be done across Nigeria. Now, in terms of the proposed regulations for presumptive tax in Nigeria, because of the diversity that we have within the economy, some of the highlights were the following: segmentation of taxpayers into micro, small, and medium based on the level of activity. For example, someone who sows in Lagos would be classified differently from someone who sows in maybe Ogun State or Kaduna State or other states. We also have bands ranging from 2,500 per annum to up to 150,000 per annum for the highest category of taxpayer. Now, we believe that once you pay tax of 150,000, you should be in a position to keep accurate records, regardless of what industry that you belong to. We also have to start to use technology to improve efficiency and block leakages. And this doesn't only account or is not only targeted towards the formal sector, it's also to the informal sector. We're talking to organizations whereby you can start to pay your taxes through your mobile phone, and everybody here knows that. Even the damper driver has a mobile phone. Also, at the federal level, we have come up with a team called FEET. Just as the name sounds, they're always on their feet. They're called Federal Engagement Enlightenment Tax Teams that go around to help fill out forms and also educate people on the payment of taxes, both at the federal and state levels. We also have a nationwide tax enlightenment campaign in 5 major languages on radio.
What are the impediments to a successful operation of presumptive tax?
The question is that as politicians, a lot of people believe that these people are your voters, and if you tax them, they won't vote for you. Don't tax so you don't lose votes. But I can assure you that the party that introduced presumptive tax in Lagos State is still the party that is still ruling Lagos State. So the issue here is that as a tax person, you may be political, but at the same time, you have to be politically wise and make sure that you do generate revenue for your government. And in generating revenue for your government, you're actually generating revenue for the people, because once the government has money, the government will use that same money to increase the standard of living or to carry out services for the people.
Every day, my people they for work. Some they do office work. Some get it them own business. So all of them want good road, constant power for better life. Whether now office work, oh yeah, pay your tax. Whether now your own business, oh pay your tax. If you want a better life, oh pay your tax. Now your civic responsibility, pay your tax. Better soup, now money cook am. Oh yes. Nothing goes for nothing, my brother. If you want potable water, security and hospital for make life jolly.
That's right. Good roads, good hospitals, potable water, adequate security all come from taxpayers' money. Play your part in making Nigeria great. Everybody, small scale, big companies, entrepreneurs, do the right thing. Pay your tax. This message is from the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS.
Is presumptive tax for everyone?
Now, in terms of the exit rules, because some people may decide that they want to stay under the presumptive tax regime, because the taxes they'll pay will be lower than if they did keep accurate records. And some of them do have accurate records, but if they think they can still stay under the presumptive tax initiative, they'll prefer to stay there. And that's why we do have a cap. When I assumed office at the FIRS, knowing the cross between those in the informal sector and those in the corporate world, you'll find out that some people who hide under that heading, informal sector, are actually some of the richest individuals in the country. And I'll give you a typical example. Just like the minister said, before any payment is made from the Ministry of Finance to any vendor right now, they clear through the Federal Inland Revenue Services. When they were paying out subsidy payments of close to $500 million, we saw names of enterprises on that list. We saw limited liability companies on that list. Some of those companies should have paid taxes to various state boards of internal revenue also. So they may say they don't keep accurate records and might try and classify themselves under the informal sector, but they were earning or generating a lot of income. And that is where the cooperation between both the federal and the state boards of internal revenue are required. What we have done is that we have simplified the forms for registration to obtain TIN. Initially, we had 13 pages, and we have reduced that to 1 page. We had close to 135 fields to be filled. We've reduced that to 33. We've also printed forms on behalf of states for those who want to capture and increase their individuals under this informal sector. And like I said before, we believe that we should be able to achieve additional 10 million by the end of this year.
And on the need to make tax payment convenient and easy?
Quite frankly, if you asked a man or a woman in the informal sector to register for taxes, and that person had to travel more than 10 to 15 minutes away, or had to leave his or her shop, or had some level of inconvenience to it and had nothing immediately to benefit from, they won't see any incentive in doing that. So we as tax practitioners have to make it very, very convenient. We've also looked at this not only in the informal sector, but we've looked at it also even in FIRS. We do have situations whereby we have what we call large tax offices, and sometimes taxpayers have to travel maybe 30 minutes or 40 minutes if they have a tax issue to the tax office where their file is kept. We've recently decided that no taxpayer will have to travel more than 5 to 10 minutes to have his tax issue resolved. So it applies both to those in the formal sector and even those in the formal sector.
There you are. It is our hope that with successful operation of a presumptive tax regime in Nigeria and the bringing into the tax net of that huge chunk of informal sector operators, Nigeria can begin to smile and begin to consider all revenue as simply bonus. Tax revenue will become the new oil. We thank you most sincerely for watching today's episode of Tax Matters. From Christina.
Thank you for watching. See you next week.